of LANcouver. This is day 2 of our League of Legends action. I am Pato, and with me is the enigmatic Highwind on the mic.
Yo guys, what's going on?
So right now we have a quick little start out from both teams. It looks like Red might be doing a little bit of poke in on the red side of the blue team, and blue team just trying to defend their blue buff right now.
Yeah, just going over real quickly, we might see some action here, but I just want to talk about the bans as we didn't get a chance to see them in chat. So like the blue team, VanCity V, banning Nautilus, Galio, and Janna, opting to take Tarek first pick. Festive 5 banning Graves, Shin, and Malphite from the purple side.
I'm kind of interested. I'm kind of interested in those picks and bans, especially just simply because if you make all those bans and then most teams I don't ever feel like I've never seen like the first pick Tarek. Like to me that's kind of weird, especially with the Alistar on the board. It could do a lot of things that Tarek does, but in my opinion a lot better actually. He can dive on a turrets a lot better, and he's a lot more aggressive. Has actually a better sustain in my opinion too if you level up his heal. So a little bit, I'm interested why they decided to go with that pick. Also, especially with an Ashe, because Ashe typically wants to be, she doesn't want to be too aggressive. Yeah, she doesn't want to be. She wants to be passive.
And Tarek is more of like an aggressive. You would want to pair Tarek with maybe like a
Tristana, Graves, that kind of thing. Which is, totally expected. But coming back and wheeling Alistar and Ezreal right off the bat, it's pretty good pickups.
And just real quickly, both these teams taking 3 wins in pool play. VanCity going 3-2 in pool play. They actually had a pool of 6, and then Festive 5 going 3-1. So we're going to bring you this match today for the round 1. It should be an amazing match. I think both these teams on paper look very even.
Yes, definitely. These are the 4 and 5 seeds, so it's kind of like typically if you're in the March Madness bracket, if you will, you should be expecting that at some point, this is going to be the clincher game. This is the game that could go anyway. This is the one that's going to ruin your bracket, if you just try to side with the highest seed team.
And we see almost a counter jungle, but the blue team responding really well, going with that, just collapsing really well and forcing Nocturne to flash out through Dragon Pit.
Yeah, there's definitely something to look for. Whenever you run in a Moo jungle, that is one thing you definitely have to expect. You have to expect to have your jungle invaded, because it's this common nugget of wisdom. If you're playing against a Moo, invade his jungle and then he's so slow. But if a Moo actually gets to start like he's gotten now, they protected him a little bit. He actually has a pretty fast jungle once he starts leveling up. So this is really, really good for blue team. They've protected their Amumu, and later on in team fights, Amumu is going to be a terror, especially when he hits level 6. It's really hard to get out of his ganks. This Ezreal Alistar lane is going to be very, very aggressive on this Ashe, and hopefully Tarek, is enough. He's probably actually not going to be shattering a lot. He's actually just going to be keeping up to mitigate a lot of the harassment damage onto Ashe. It looks like we look into Nocturne. He's finally getting back to his red, so he's a little bit behind. He tried to do the invade. He wasn't able to pull it off, but now he's actually going to pick up his red. Probably a little bit too low to actually put up a gank on the top, so lucky for the top solos, they don't have to worry about getting any of those early ganks that we see so often in League of Legends these days in competitive play.
So I'm going through and kind of theory crafting when I'm in Champ Select, I'm thinking, what is my plan? What is my goal? Obviously, I'm playing off the enemy team, whether or not they first pick. We do see some aggression here in bot lane, but let's say in this case, blue team first pick Tarek.
Yep.
That's a pretty safe pick. It's like, hey, we're gonna first pick support. And I'm gonna hold up real quick because we might see a Mumu coming here in bot lane. But by first picking support, you're basically punting to the other team, saying, hey, we're not gonna tell you anything other than what our support's gonna be. We're gonna force you to pick. Maybe you're gonna go ahead and pick your bot lane. Maybe you're gonna go ahead. Most likely not gonna pick a solo lane. But what this will do is give more information back to the blue team to make more information on what they want to do with their team composition. And I don't mind first pick supports. I actually really prefer first pick supports. Now first pick Tarek, as you said, with Alistar on the board, I don't quite agree with.
Yeah.
But in this situation, I think it's going to work out fine for them. They have a lot of CC here on the blue team. Everybody on the blue team has a stun.
Yeah, definitely. And gank coming in right now. If that Fear Tether lands, it does get converted, and it will. This could be a kill onto Jax. The stun will go off, but it will get chased down. That will be first blood for Olaf, and that is great for Olaf. Now he's going to be able to bully around Jax just a little bit with that true damage. But again, Jax, he does have that dodge. He can come back up in the top lane. He can be fine. Might need a Mumu to start showing up once he starts to level up. If we look at a Mumu, he looks like he's level 4. He's creeping up now on level 5. He's about halfway to level 5.
And taking a quick look at the purple team comp, you know, I want to say they went with... So first and foremost, what they did was they went with the last pick mid. So in a lot of standard strategies, we see the last pick going to, you know, for purple side, going to the top laner. In this situation, they were saving their last pick for mid lane. In this case, Morgana was still on the board, which, in personal opinion, I don't agree with. I think Morgana should be banned in most formats. But in this situation, Morgana was still on the board, and they were able to last pick Morgana to go against Annie.
I mean, Morgana's pretty interesting. She's really, really safe. She's almost like Annie, but even safer than Annie is. I think Annie's just kind of like a safe pick for a lot of like just players that play AP mid. You know, her role is very, very simple. What you need to do, you wait for Tibber to come in, you stun people, and if with the AOE comp and the heavy stun comp that the blue team has, it definitely fits in their strategy. You know, Morgana probably could do the same thing too. And I feel like, you know, maybe if blue team felt that, you know, they had a good counter to Morgana or something like that, they could let the Morgana slide. And typically, you know, what you see from the red side or the purple side, if you will, is that, you know, they will last pick a solo lane because, you know, those are the best lanes to counter. So whether you try to pick mid or try to pick top is very up to you. And, you know, an Olaf pick, again, I didn't catch exactly where that came through because I think I came in after switches were made. You know, that's a pretty safe pick for top a lot of times. You know, you can I know a lot of players, especially that we know that are really top solo players, they'll pick Olaf and they'll be confident, you know, that they can hang up there with a lot of people.
Yeah, and the Jax was actually because the purple team had to take their top lane sooner because they were saving their mid pick. That gave the blue team an option to counter pick or pick Jax after Olaf.
And Amumu is not level 6 here. Otherwise, they could have had a really sick AoE combo, but all the focus is going to Amumu. Olaf has come down as well. They're now trying to zone out Unbreakable, trying to run out of this. And great bait there by Nocturne. He knew he had the spell shield, but Timber's coming around for the secret attack. Not expected right there. But that was actually a nice little bait out there, actually, to get Annie to, you know, to come in and commit and say, like, oh, I can kill this guy. And, you know, not maybe thinking about the fact that, you know, Nocturne has that spell shield, and he laughs, but guess who gets last laugh? Annie, because Timber's coming around the backside, backing her up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I like to call it the T-bomb. Honestly, I think the way you should play Annie, in my opinion, is anytime your ult is up, you should find some way to use it. Whether you're baiting the enemy, whether you're being aggressive with your play, whether you're getting out of lane and going to use that in bot or top lane, like that's how important her ultimate is. And a lot of casters it should be played similar in my opinion, but Annie's the original. She's the vanilla. She's your not that hard to play AP mid that can bring in her kit. Her kit is it's very straightforward.
And yeah, exactly like you said, T-bomb's an awesome spell, and it's one of the few summons that's like really has a huge effect. Its auto attacks are amazing. They do a ton of damage early. He has an AoE damage aura, and if you really control him, after he's out, if you even killed your opponent, use him as a ward, throw him around. There's so many ways that you can use Timber actively besides let him just like mindlessly follow you. And now that Riot has actually implemented the new system where you can actually use ult a lot like Victor's ult to actually redirect him instead of having to use the alt key, it's a lot less cumbersome. We've seen a lot more players make use of that and make use of Timbers moving him around.
For some of us Mordekaiser players that were used to using the alt key, I'm a little thrown off now with the new, because I don't play Victor that much. And
yeah.
Yes, okay, self-admittedly, I have played some Mordekaiser, but it's interesting because you look at these players that sometimes they'll play Mordekaiser, Annie, Yorick, and they forget to control their ghosts, and you're like, yo, control your ghosts.
Yeah.
Like you can run in there, you can face check bushes. And here comes that T-bomb.
Actually, that was really clever.
Oh!
Ash Arrow just barely misses, trying to anticipate it, but I think they still might have her, and they will get it. And that was really, really smart there. What you saw is, Andy was like, hey, you know what? I don't have my stun up, but I know it's going to come in this cycle. I'll blow down her shield with my Q, give it up, knock that down, and then now that I have the stun, Timbers comes in, and we can be able to pick up the kill.
The layering of CC, if the Ash Arrow would have hit, I would have been just like, yeah, from the high, but in this situation, they did it really well. They stacked it out. The blind bandage toss, because they saw where Morgana flashed to in the direction, but she was still stunned from Annie, and the bandage toss able to come in, just continue to layer that CC. Timbers coming in, putting in that additional damage. Morgana going down.
And we have Nocturne jumping in here, and they were going to easily pick up this kill with the Ignite. is going to convert it really, really quickly. And poor Jax, he's getting picked on this top lane. And this is a really good way, to gain an early advantage in games. Like really early, is focus on that top lane, get your top lane snowballing, and then you don't have to worry about him because top lane usually snowballs really, really hard. And unless you go sleeping on Jax at some point in this game, and Olaf's not staying up there, and you let him farm up, AFK farm maybe, he might find a way to get back in this game. But otherwise, Olaf should be pretty well set up there now that they've picked up 2 kills at least on Jax.
So the blue team going with this CC heavy team composition. Well, guess what Olaf says?
I don't care about that.
I don't care about CC. So
I'm coming for Ashe, and you better be running.
By having Nocturne somewhat camp the top lane, or just be helping Olaf snowball, getting ahead, getting that advantage, that is going to pay dividends when we move into the mid game and even late game, because Olaf is going to be able to charge to the back lines. He's not going to stun. He's going to be able to get to Ashe, and that's going to be the most important part, because Ashe, while she's not the hyper carry that Tristana, Vayne, and Corki or Kog'Maw might be, she's still going to have that range. She's still going to have that slow. She's still going to have all the CC to back it up, from the rest of the team. She's still going to be doing a ton of damage. And so, Olaf is going to be able to need to get to that back, that back lines. Nocturne's going to be able to get to that back lines. Ezreal rocking Cleanse. We might even see a QSS on Ezreal. Like, he's got the mobility. This is great. He's also got the peel from Alistar. I really like the purple team's composition right now for what they're going up against. I also like any team that, and when you're coming into a format like this, the blue team's composition is very safe. It's got hard CCs. They aren't hard to land. I think that's, from just a player perspective and even like a tournament strategist, I think it's a safe composition.
Yes.
And they can always change it up. If the AoE comp doesn't work for them, maybe in game 1, this is a best of 3. They have an option to change it up.
Yeah, what I also like is the Morgana pick, because not only does she have the spell shield that can kind of avoid that initial CC, but typically what happens with AoE teams is when they layer all their CC, they all kind of go in, and that actually sets up Morgana to come in and land the perfect ult. She can land that really huge, perfect 5-man soul shackle if she's lucky enough. Meanwhile, while Ashe is getting dived by a million people, so I really, really, really do like both these teams coming in here, and I'm really excited to see what we do as we get further in this game. If we look at the gold difference, Red, just now taking a 2K lead, so they're creeping up there in CS right now with their advantage, and they have a 2-kill advantage. So that's what's giving them their nice advantage so far. It looks like they might try to steal the blue, and actually that's a great Dark Binding in there. Olaf is coming down again, and I like the red team's aggressiveness over this blue buff. They're going to be able to take out a Mumu. Mumu's trying to run for his life. I'm interested to see when Annie might try to use her stun. Looks like she's just going to back off here, flash out to safety, and they're just going to give up this blue buff, which, Red really making it known that they want to be in your jungle. They want to be in the blue team's head. They're going to want to. This is going to put a lot of pressure mentally on the blue team, because they're going to feel like not only are the lanes going rough, but also they're always in our jungle. There's nowhere that's safe. We always have to be active. We always have to be on our game, and we're always under pressure.
And it's always hard to, this really shows how good players manage when they're in game, manage and make decisions. Because right now, with the red team, based on this aggression, by being in their jungle, they're giving away some of their game plan. They're saying, hey, we're going to be aggressive, and it looks like they're going to continue to be aggressive. So what the blue team is going to want to do, if they can't collapse and respond quickly enough, they need to change their strategy. And maybe not this game, but in the next game, and kind of be prepared. And the best way to do that is to be, change your ward placements a little bit.
Yeah.
Possibly warding that bush, waiting for them to come to it, and then having a delayed collapse. There are different things you can do to then really mitigate this aggressive style.
I definitely think when we switch to they are going to switch sides. So the VanCity versions that we've seen here, they're going to actually be on the red team side. And when you're on the red team side, your blue buff is actually a little bit safer. It can still get invaded, but typically you will see a lot of the early wards actually funneled and focused around Dragon, because he's the more important early game objective. Later on, you move towards a Baron. But if let's say they get past that and they have a more protected blue naturally by their warding on the red side. But then they actually win their game, they're actually going to come back to this blue side, and they're going to have to remember, hey, you know what, these guys were really on point. They were keeping our blue timer down. They were constantly going in there. And so what we should expect from them now is they should be maybe possibly warding it themselves and actually catching the red team invading if we do see a game 3. Nocturne has both buffs here. It looks like he's waiting for his ult barely to come up. That blue buff should help with that cooldown, and then we should see another dive somewhere making plays on the map. It looks like he's just hanging outside the fog of war. Unfortunately, that Dark Bite does miss, but the Soul Shackle will land. Tibbers is coming down without the stun. Stun is up now for Annie. She can turn around and actually put down a great stun, and it will convert a kill and give a double buff to Annie. Unbreakable, apparently living up to his name right here. You can't break that guy. He's just going to live through it. And his stuns just keep coming up at the right times. You know, it's not up always, but he always has them when he needs them.
Yeah, a lot of players, early in their League of Legends career might have given up. They might have just freaked out, or just, the fingers may not have been hitting keys. But Annie was constantly there, making sure she moved out of the tormented soil, make sure she's face rolling those keys, making sure those spells are coming off. And right now, Ash in a lot of trouble. Here come the
Whoa,
stun.
there's the all. It's just barely going to be juked. And Tarek very, very low too. So Blue is going to have a really hard time actually sticking around in this bottom lane with a full health Alistar. Alistar looks like he does have his ult, so if they hang around too long, possibly Nocturne could rotate down soon. Looks like Red is pinging for Dragon, possibly saying that they know Tark's going up to ward it, which will actually protect them a little bit here. And I actually really like Blue's warding. If you look at their warding, actually Tark had a little pressure. But if you look at their warding, they actually even have their red buff brush warded at this point. They have Tri-Brush inside their own red buff, so somehow even if Nocturne was to come into the back of Dragon Pit and flash over, he would still be seen entering the blue team's bottom jungle.
This is exactly what we were just talking about a second ago, where maybe you don't change your strategy in mid-game, you're actually changing it for the next game. Well, these guys are making changes on the fly. They know their red buff's going to come up soon. They know that there's been a lot of aggression from the red team, and so in this situation, they're putting these extra wards and really trying to guard their own resources.
We see Nocturne just trying to hang out of range. He's been hiding in that brush. Unless there is a ward in there, they wouldn't know he was there, and he has enough range that he could dive in. They might suspect he might have blue pilled. They did definitely see him come down. Now they know that he is up there and rotating. It looks like all of red team. Olaf is rotated down. They are going to try to pull off this dragon. And this is actually could be good for the blue team. It looks like they're going to do the split sides, the pincer move, if you will, which is typically very, very bad. But they have enough good AoE that, in those situations, if they were all up and ready and they prepared for it, if Ash had her arrow and they layered everything correctly, they could punish the red team, possibly in a dragon pit, when they all are bunched together, focused on trying to pick up that dragon.
Yeah, I think in this situation, they didn't commit ults to it. I think it would have been a bad fight. Amomo's ult was down.
Yes.
So they didn't commit to a fight. They didn't, Ash arrow didn't come off in this situation. So, they didn't commit a whole lot, and Jax got to basically push push those creeps in top lane into the turret. Looks like we might have. He did go. Once he pushed that lane, he got out of lane, go back, maybe grab a ward, and yes, they gave up dragon. Yes, they're giving up gold there, but they didn't lose anything outside of that dragon. A lot of times, teams will commit or commit to a bad fight or a bad engage at dragon, or in case point, a lot of Baron fights that you see where games are won and lost, and so. Not a big loss for them. They have the timer. They can just say, hey, guys, 6 minutes from now, we're going to rethink what we're going to do if this happens. We know they made an attempt at it. We know in 6 minutes from now it'll be up, and so they can plan accordingly. Yeah,
and looking at red, they have that timer down. They're already on the blue buff again. So they know that one thing that is predictable at red team is they're going to be there. So, if they do wait, and Amumu going in here is going to get the perfect ult in, get the three members of the red team. Tibbers is going to come in, do some serious damage, but now they're actually focusing back on to the blue team. Ash Arrow just barely missing, just barely behind. Annie just trying to get enough damage here, and if she survives through this, she might be able to pick up a triple kill after all. Nocturne popping his spell, she'll try to protect herself. Flash after by Annie, and she's not barely just going to barely miss the Inferno right there. If she could have been able to hit that, might have been able to take down Nocturne and pick up a blue buff in the process, get her blue buff back, but Nocturne really quick on the flash, so he only took the Q, and he's perfectly fine right now. He's going to go up and feast.
2 for 2, and they lost blue buff. Not, I think what they've done is they said, yo, red team, bring it in. Come at me, bro, because right now we are prepared. They play that really well. Amomu not quite as tanky yet. As this game goes on longer, he will become a little more tanky. He's got that giant belt now. He's got a chain vest. He's gonna get that extra health. He's not gonna get, he's not gonna get popped immediately. So he's not just gonna be able to, oh hey, I walk in, and I'm actually gonna walk in and have a sustained presence in a fight.
Yeah, definitely.
And Annie, I really love the play right now from Annie.
It's like patience. I look at her. There's no freaking out. It's just like, oh yeah, I got this. I just need to wait for my spell rotations. What's-his-face is gonna die, but I'm not gonna run. I'm just gonna keep leading him in, sucking him in. She doesn't get too far away that they give up. and they still follow her and realize that she still has advantage. She can still make a play. And
So
looking at this bottom lane, Ezreal 169 CS to Ash's 103. That's a lot of CS advantage for bot lane. I have to believe a lot of it is the fact that Ashe, she's a passive laner, and she has Tark with her. They kind of conflict with each other. And Alistar, honestly, compared with Ezreal, is a really, really tough, aggressive lane. And what we've seen whenever we come bottom is not necessarily kills have been given up there, but the pressure has been so much that Blue is having to back, and Red is being able to left to farm up and just keep pushing the waves into their turret.
Yeah, and in this situation, based on these champ compositions in bot lane, the red team is going to have an advantage. There's going to be additional mobility from Ezreal. You've got Alistar, who has an AoE, AoE stun / knockup. He's also got a displacement effect. It's just more leaning towards the favor of the red team. The good news for Ashe is that they knew it was going to be a passive lane. They just kind of need to continue to farm. She's going to get the extra gold from her passive. And
there's that aggression again, all focused on the Ashe. Tark coming up, just shattering, just trying to push her off. But really, that shatter at this point doesn't do a lot. Ezreal, he's going to be able to be healed up by a Alistar. It doesn't really do that much damage. Really, Tark actually, in this case, instead of using that shatter to deal more damage, since Ashe just has to back off because she's low, he really just has to keep it up to try to protect himself and mitigate damage to Ashe.
What I'm really worried about is this Olaf. He's got 141 CS. It's, not the most right now. Ezreal actually doing the best part farming. But he's got 5 kills.
Nocturne all in on this Jax. He's going to be stunned, but that red buff slowing him down. He's going to try to leap away. He's going to have to flash to get out of this. Otherwise, he surely would have been dead. And now Olaf and Nocturne are going to have some funsies behind this enemy turret. And it looks like they might take it down. It is 22 minutes in. They easily could take it, but they just happened to put it just low enough that if any minion decides to sneeze on this turret, it will go down. It looks like they're actually just going to camp Olaf in the top lane. They have him snowballed enough to the point, like you said earlier, where he has good farm. He has all his team's kills, really. And so he's just going to be able to sit up there, and they're going to have to send a lot of focus up there if they're going to actually want to hold him down. And with his ult, and this AoE stuns that they're trying to rock, they're going to have to wait till that runs out even until they can catch him, and he has Ghost as well.
Yeah, what they're going to want to hope to do is potentially pick up Olaf as collateral damage in team fights.
Yeah.
So Olaf is going to go roar and run through all their CC, and Tarek getting caught out of position in a lot of trouble.
And this actually happens a lot with supports when you're behind and you try to take that angle up to go ward. You have to find, I think as a support, you have to realize where the danger zones are when you go up to ward, because one, you leave your AD carry exposed if they're there or not, because if they realize you're gone, they can go on your AD carry, and two, it'll leave you in trouble if you go up and place that ward and they realize it and they're like, oh, the angle you have to come back, by the way, there's no angle, it's safe. You're going to have to maybe flash out of the back of Dragon or something like that. So maybe instead of placing that ward right in front of Dragon, you come into the back of Dragon, place it so you know for sure that you can get back and you'll be safe. It's a common mistake that will happen with support players. But I think Blue might be fine, down a Tarek if they want to engage on this. If they have all their ults, let's go Mumu coming up here in this brush. If he gets it correctly, they decide to go. It looks like they're just going to taunt them right now. They can't. They decide, hey, you know what? We really don't want to lose a fight at Dragon because that'll snowball our disadvantage even harder. So let's just back off.
And I just want to point out what they did there. They said, hey, we definitely don't want to fight this yet. And so, I think what Mummy was looking to do is potentially steal, but both solid plays by both Alistar and Morgana. Morgana basically covering their blind spot from that bush there, and which I believe they had a ward, but covering that blind spot, and then Alistar for zoning out the jungler. That's exactly what you want to see in those type of team engagements over an objective. So let's first say, for example, they get to a point where they're dealing with Baron, and hey, a steal would really screw them over. Zoning out the enemy jungler is the way to ensure that your team gets the objective. And so, Alistar doing a great job there, not kind of tunnel visioning in on Dragon, make sure he's going down. He's just, hey, I know Amomo's in the area. If he makes a step in the wrong direction, I'm going to headbutt him out. I might pulverize him out. I'm going to make sure he doesn't somehow get in here and smite this Dragon.
And one important thing to point out, too, is the fact that Nocturne has an Oracles now. Even though they're able to put wards in the back of the Dragon, another engagement factor might have been the fact that Nocturne's they're able to remove wards and vision, and then it's all up to Mummy to try to play a guessing game, and you don't want to, bet the house on the guessing game of the Fog of War and hope it works out. I think Blue is confident they have a pretty good AoE comp, that if they can layer it right and get their right moment, they can pull this off. I think if I was going back and looking at this game, and they run it, if you were to run it back again, I would notice that Red's reliability is that they're reliable. You know they're going to show up when blue buff comes up. You know they're going to show up when dragon buff comes up, and they're going to be there. You just have to make sure it's like, hey team, let's make sure all our alts are up, and then we can actually come in and be prepared for them and just take them down and make our move to decisively strike them, because they have the AoE ults and the potential to do it if they want to. But at this point, now
they had a prime opportunity to pick off Nocturne and that Oracles. Ash did not fire that arrow. They were the spell shield came up, and he Mr. Patience, as we've been talking about, waited for that spell shield to come down, hit that rotation, didn't actually blow Tibbers, but if Ash would have fired that arrow, they would have killed Nocturne. They would have taken that Oracle. They had that kill potential there in lane, and it's just kind of a lost opportunity, and they may go back and realize, oh man, I really did have this. I think in hindsight, maybe Nocturne could have flashed it, and that would have been really embarrassing to lose your Ash Arrow and maybe Tibbers. Yeah. So, it could go either way. I think League of Legends really takes a look at the aggression. I really think taking risk in the... Oh.
Whoa. Okay, the Ash Arrow did hit, thankfully. And there's the AoE ults that are going to come in here. There's the Amumu. Finally, Tibbers is going to get in the mix. None of the red team actually... quite falling in. Morgana has fallen. Looks like Olaf is finally going down. They're able to pick up him and that kill bonus. They're definitely going to pick up Alistar. And now Nocturne running for his life, and this is exactly what the blue team wanted.
And guess
what?
They
finally got it.
Highwing going to eat his words and be like, hey, Highwing, if they had killed, Nocturne there, then the enemy
team
wouldn't have
do that. Yeah.
The enemy team wouldn't have just thrown them, thrown 4 kills at us. So,
the good news for the red team is that even though they're going to lose 2 turrets and those 4 kills, blue team's roaring back. They were down by 7k. Now they're almost in the hunt, just barely down 4k. Nocturne got to keep his Oracle.
Yeah.
So that's the good news. The good news is you didn't get wiped and lose an Oracle to insult to injury, but that's exactly what the blue team wanted. And if they can apply that to some of the other objectives, then they're gonna be pretty set for a lot of these team fights. Amumu has an Oracle now. Now they're gonna have a lot of map control if they can actually hunt down that Nocturne eventually. And the problem for Nocturne is he's gonna have to. Nocturne's kit generally is that he has to kind of get in there, and that's gonna expose that Oracle quite a bit.
So blue team just established that, hey, look, we have a team fight presence. Like, we know we have an advantage in a team fight, especially under turret. And just to quickly kind of belay that statement is that, they took those 2 turrets. I think, alternatively, they could have made an attempt at Baron. They didn't quite get the inhib. The turrets were good. It's going to help them catch up. I think right now they've noticed that the enemy team has made a play towards Baron. So right now, this is really working in blue team's favor. Purple team did not, or sorry, the red team didn't run back. They didn't go rush Baron, and while Ash was down in bot lane farming. So, basically they can guard this. They can counter ward. This is great. Both teams with an Oracle. They can establish map control and presence in this area because Baron is going to be the next objective. Right now, dragons don't matter. Most turrets don't matter, and Hib wouldn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, base turrets.
There's no way you're gonna. Most likely, there's no way you're gonna trade a base turret for an Hib right now. Both the second tier turrets are up for blue team and red team. So right now, the biggest high priority objective on the map is Baron Nashor, who has been fixed. He's no longer Mr. OP Baron.
Yeah,
Nashor.
Mr. All of a sudden I spaz out and go rage mode on you kids. But there was a lot of. I mean, I'm gonna give VanCity Virgins the credit. I think there was actually some smart play there that they realized hey, our advantage is that AoE comp, much like we were talking about earlier, how Dragon, they're sucked in when they try to do Dragon. Baron for them is basically hey, if the red team tries to do Baron and we're prepared for it, guess what? We get to wipe them again. Yep. And we possibly get Baron, and we probably have a good shot at winning this game just so they try to do Baron. So let's take the turrets, get the quick gold to actually help us catch up, and then we can just bide our time till we can get that next objective and engage on them. It looks like red is down at Dragon yet again. Prepared for it as always, right as it comes up. Again, completely reliable. All the ults up. All the ults are up for the blue team, but they're just not in position quite ready for that one yet. And that's the only thing I would tell them is they know they can win team fights, and red team's gonna be there at this point. They're gonna be there.
Right.
They haven't missed a single one.
So another word for reliable is predictable.
Yeah.
Now, that could be good, that could be bad. Also, teams are always have the ability to change it up, and they can really make you think one way and then pull a Kansas City shuffle.
Yeah.
So I think right now, going into this roam mode, which is what they're doing, they have this Oracle, they're just roaming. They're looking to catch someone out of position. They've got Baron warded. They're not worried about that. I think this is a good play. And I think this is a really strong strategy. They know they're going to win a team fight, or at least they have confidence that they're going to win a team fight if they're given the right placement. I think they just want to wait for one person to step out of position and commit to a fight. And I think they might use Ashe as bait here. So they're going to let Ashe push up mid. And then I think both teams are going to collide here in mid lane. Although, by the red team clearing that ward at Baron, they've taken vision away from the blue team. Except they then showed up.
And they don't know that they're here. They do not have vision. Amumu knows this. He set it up. If he picks the right moment to jump over here, his team wouldn't be able to fall over that wall. So just great patience by the blue team. They've shown it all game. Nocturne actually entering that brush. They actually are going to check this. He does know that it is there. Ashe is going to go straight onto Ezreal. That's exactly the one he's going to cleanse out. He's barely going to get out of range. Amumu diving in here to try to get the damage in. Looks like a lot of focus on the tanks right now. Soul Shackle is going to go off. And it looks like the red team trying to collapse in here on the blue team, but Unbreakable is still in the back, putting out his anti-DPS, getting his spell rotations down. Nocturne is focused on him, but he's not falling. Looks like Olaf is going to go down. Alistar flashing out of this to get out. And Unbreakable really right now carrying his team. He's 7-1-4, 211 CS. If we look at the gold, he's at 10k gold. The only one matching him is Olaf. But Olaf, the good thing about for the blue team is that Olaf, when you get these late game scenarios, he has this really good pick moment where he's able to dive you, but it looks like they've been able to handle him. And at that point, if all the gold is on Olaf, or the main amount of gold for the red team is on Olaf, you have to be happy with that as the blue team.
Yeah, they've been able to pick him up as collateral damage in these fights, and they've been able to position correctly, and that is how you beat Olaf. You say, hey Olaf, we know you just want to run at us, so guess what we're going to do? We're going to lock down your entire team, we're going to blow up your squishies if we can position correctly, and we're going to force you to come at us and just let our tanks take that front line. And honestly, when I was screaming, oh, as you were doing that excellent play-by-play commentary, Annie flashed over into the blue buff area. So she basically took herself out of the fight. No one had vision on her. She was able to come up from behind, lay down those spell rotations. They picked Ezreal first. Ezreal, had the cleanse, but he still ate a massive amount of stun. It was like Astro, cleanse, bandage toss, Annie. It was so she made this really good play by positioning herself by flashing into the blue area where the blue buff spawns. So I like that play, and I like the play style right now coming from Annie. However, Jack's in a lot of trouble
Definitely
right now.
Definitely a smart player, and it looks like Jack's actually going to be able to get out of this. So good for him. Although the rest of the blue team, Taric and Amumu, are stuck in not so great a position. Were able to get picked off by some wards, so they do know that they're running up through their enemy jungle. Amumu is going to be able to make sure that there's no more wards. They're going to see where they're going now.
Yeah,
but they're going to have to pick a good place to get out.
Mission: get the heck out of Dodge.
Uh-oh. What is Ashe doing? Ashe. That is not something you want for the blue team. An instant ping from red team to go in a Baron. It looks like Taric and Amumu were also trying to get out, so they're backing off. I think maybe Ashe thought that the red team was chasing when they weren't. And that's really, really unfortunate play for the blue team. They're going to have to give up Baron. And now they're going to be on the back foot for a little bit. They still have those AoE also, still might be able to take them. But the red team, as you saw in those team fights, if they're able to get that extra sustain from Baron, then it means that they're not going to actually fall quite as quickly, and they might be able to survive through and put out their damage longer than the blue team and be able to win and survive through those AoE ults.
Yeah, really unfortunate play there, and that is a play mistake. Ashe is going to look back and say, like, man, if I could have those 10 seconds, if I could have that right click back, I really want it back. The good news is, if you're the captain of your team, you're like, hey guys, we know they have Baron, but guess what? Our inhibs are still up, most of our turrets are still up. We know we're still a team fight centric comp. The game is not over. If we take a look at one team's late game versus another, I would say in terms of late game carry status, Ashe is going to have a better late game than Ezreal. Especially if you take a look at Ezreal. Ezreal going Triforce and now possibly working on a Bloodthirster
looks like
maybe
Infinity Edge. Yeah.
Where Ashe already has an Infinity Edge. She already has the Phantom Dancer. Probably going to be working on a Last Whisper. Amumu, they still have their Oracle. So yeah, they gave up a free Baron. They're gonna give up kind of that lane dominance because now the the red team can show up in any lane and say, look, you can't fight us because we have Baron, which means we're probably gonna get a free dragon out of this as well. So they're gonna give up some of that gold advantage, but we're late enough in the game where it's not gonna absolutely cripple them, and the blue team still has their their trump card, which is, hey, when Baron wears off, we're going to come at you. We're going to fight it as a team. We've proven that we can beat you in a team fight. We've done it twice already. The only thing that's going to be different is, whether or not the advantage you gain by taking Baron and taking maybe some extra turrets and dragons will come into play.
And like clockwork, red team ready for another dragon. They're going to pick it up. It's going to give him a little bit more gold as we move along here. One thing I'm noticing about Olaf's build, which is important, he had that really big lead, and his items let him do damage, like we were talking about early. But the problem is now that he's going on here, he's gone very, very tanky. So the problem for him is, even though he has a lot of items and he's tanky, he doesn't do that much damage.
Right.
Like, he has his true damage, but a lot of top players will tell you with these builds, like after going Frozen Mallet, you have to go some other type of damage item. Whether you go for the old Atmos with the Frozen Mallet or something,
or a Mob Malwarders.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, you need something else in there because this build right here just doesn't do enough damage. And as the breadwinner for the red team, you got to be able to put out a little bit more damage as Olaf.
And Nocturne does quite a bit of damage from your jungle. He's that type of jungler that snowballs heavily as a jungler. He's similar to Jack's jungle in a sense where if you can get ahead early, you can kind of snowball and carry from the jungle. There aren't a whole lot of junglers that can do that. Most junglers are like, instant for a Mumu, he's an initiator. Yeah. He's a tanky guy. He's also providing utility and support, and he has a lot of sustained damage based on his kit. And that's what you want. That's what their whole role is. Hey, a Mumu says, I'm going to start the fight. I just need you guys to finish it. Whereas Nocturne says, if a fight starts, I might, I can actually provide something depending on how the early game went. I
can tear down a carry for you. I can make that move, but if need be.
As you said, right now the DPS, the team damage coming from the purple side is starting to fall off because Ezreal went for this Triforce build. He has completed Infinity, so he's actually going to be doing quite a bit of damage, and he does have the most CS right now, almost 300. Really good job farming here in this match, plus the Baron and all the Dragon Gold. But right now, I want to say, like, if we were to look at late game damage, the blue team has Jax. They've got an Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer Ashe. Those crits are going to do quite a bit of burst damage. They've got Annie, and they have the ability to AoE lockdown. I think they got to just make sure they don't commit to an AoE fight at a disadvantage. Would be like if the red team has Baron, like, you don't want to commit to a fight in that situation. But guess what? Baron's worn off. They they didn't give up any turrets.
Yeah. And I don't know about you. I guess I haven't seen this recently. I haven't seen this item a lot recently, but it looks like Annie's actually picked up a Moonflare Spellblade. So it's giving her 50 ability power, plus it's giving her a little bit tenacity. So I guess against some of that CC that she's going to be facing, she'll actually have a little bit of reduction on there. I actually haven't seen that item before. So it's kind of an interesting play from this Annie, and maybe that worked out for his playstyle. Obviously, I'd side with him so far based on his playstyle, but it could be an item to look into in the future. At least I might try to look into it because I think it's an interesting pickup, and I haven't quite seen it as much.
I personally probably would have gone for more of a DFG instead of a Spellblade. I think it was more of a short-term item. It's not quite that legendary item that's going to give you the oomph you need from an item, but it does have the tenacity. I think it was like, hey, they just got Baron. I don't know how much longer this game's going to go, so I'm going to buy this. It's cheap AP. It's going to add more to my defense. The other item, though, it's not so much it might be shocking to some players, but I think is a good item right now is Haunting Guise on Annie. The additional magic pen going to pay off, and this is interesting. I don't know if they quite know where all the members are. But Haunting Guise actually adds quite a bit of late game DPS, and if you just take a look at the flat spell pen that you get from that item, there's a massive post on the League of Legends forums, especially from the designers talking about the perception of Haunting Guise and why it's a good item or why it's a bad item. But when you do the math, it actually comes out to be, especially late game after you've acquired your Rabadons, maybe you have that Rod of Ages, it actually turns out to be equivalent, if not better, than maybe going for a Void Staff. And so, I don't disagree with the purchase right now. I can't quite calculate all the math, but I think it's a good item, especially at this stage of the game. They have the Abyssal Scepter here on a Mumu, plus a Mumu. I mean, basically, if you think about it, a Mumu's whole job, between his passive and Abyssal Scepter, is to shred magic resist. You've got Annie stacking flat magic resist removal. I think she's going to be almost doing true damage to anyone that doesn't have quite the Negatron cloak.
Yeah.
And
oh, here we have a team fight going down. Amumu's actually going to flash in here, use his ult, try to protect his team, but red team actually has a really good hold on the blue team, but now they've actually dove underneath the turret. Annie's backed out, still up. Now she's going to come back in the fight when she's a little bit safer. The question is, can she actually hold on to enemies? She's put some damage onto Ezreal. Ezreal almost baiting her out a little bit. She's actually sitting in the fog of war over this thing, constantly keeping on her damage, and any good carry will tell you, especially Chaos, that your job as a carry is to constantly put out damage as long as you can. It looks like we may have a DC, but as I was saying there, Chaos, if you've seen him play a lot of games, I know there's one specific thing where he's talking about he was in the back of Dragon, his team, his team's getting invaded for a fight, and he sits in there and he actually puts out as much damage as possible. At the last second, he finally, leaves the back of, leaves at the back of Dragon, but he didn't leave until the exact moment when he had to, and the point of a carry is you have to put out your damage as much as you can. We saw from Annie, she's like, okay, I'm going to sit around this corner in the fog of war. I'm going to stay in here as long as I can. I feel confident that I can be safe. I'm going to put out damage as long as I can. And a lot of players will be like, oh, I'm low, I'm out of this team fight. You'll typically see that in League of Legends. But I have to say, so far out of players, Unbreakable right now is impressing me the most of anyone in this game.
Yeah, I think, I think he's made a lot of correct plays. I think he's been carrying his team really hard in this matchup, and I really haven't quite seen his buddy reconnect. Normally we get the reconnect feature, but it looks like these guys have reconnected, so they're going to go ahead and unpause it here in a second.
And there we go. 4, 3, 2,
but
1.
If I can quickly comment on Ashe, I think he needs to take a page from Annie's book and kind of consider patience. He quickly fired that Ashe arrow into a Morgana Black Shield there a second ago.
He actually, while you were talking earlier, he actually whiffed one too earlier in an engagement and gave it up and left. Basically, blue team couldn't engage until that moment when they got engaged on.
Yeah. If I had any advice for this Ashe player, and we've actually recognized this Ashe player from one of our other events that we run at Raise Your Weapon, which is Judgment, but the advice I would give this Ashe player is just kind of take a deep breath. Constantly to be thinking like, what's going to come at me? What do I need to do? What do I, where should I be? It's positioning is one thing, and I don't know if this guy mains AD, for this team, and I don't know how much this team often plays together. But in terms of just some advice for an AD player, take a little bit more of a deep breath. Just be kind of careful where of your positioning, and and just kind of think things. Just like take a half second. And I think it'll pay dividends. If they had waited for that Black Shield to wear off, they would have hit the Ashe arrow. They would have picked all off. His ult was down. But right now, both teams back in it. Both teams are looking to compete for Baron.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Ashe lately, and I know that one of the things that typically happens on a team when you have Ashe is they're like, Ashe arrow, Ashe arrow, Ashe arrow, Ashe arrow, and they want you to lead with it. But much like Malphite's ult can be used with patience, like if you have enough AoE, like you have all these other teammates that can initiate for you, sometimes it's better to actually hold on to the Ashe arrow and wait till the dust settles and you actually have a good moment to use it. A lot of times typically what happens is you'll try to you have like low percentage chances, the more you try to initiate quickly or too quickly with an Ashe arrow, you have a lower percentage of landing it how you want it. But if people forget about it, if they're in the middle of a team fight, they're not looking for your arrow anymore, and you can actually land really, really amazing arrows in those circumstances. And it's very common for actually a lot of ults for a lot of characters. Like I was talking about Malphite earlier. A lot of times in a team fight, if you start a team fight and a Malphite's in there, a lot of people actually think that if a Malphite's in the team fight, they're like, oh yeah, he used his ult already, or they'll miss it. And then the next thing you know, everybody gets popped up again when they bunch up together because they're trying to focus someone down on your team, and you actually get a really more effective ult than if you just try to lead with it and they're spreading out expecting you to ult as Malphite.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is great advice. Hopefully these players, obviously not during this match, but the best part about coming to an event like LANcouver and casting matches in these teams is that they're going to have this video in their archive. You know, they can always go back, they can always watch it, they can always learn from it, and that's what they're going to, you know, whether or not these guys walk away champions from this event, you know, they're going to still have something to look like. And Unbreakable...
They are hard engaging on Unbreakable. They really want to get him down. He's going to turn around, use Tibbers. He's going to have to give up the body, and right now, I don't like this team fight for the blue team. They've actually lost a lot of their damage. Ash is almost already down. Ignite is on her, just trying to kite Olaf, but that is not going to work out. And now, Amumu trying to get there as the last member alive. And that is exactly what Red needed to do. They had to pick, you know, they picked off Annie, who's been carrying their team the most damage output. Ash, you know, unfortunately got picked off a little bit. It looks like she did hold on to her arrow there, or maybe it wasn't off. I'm probably thinking maybe it wasn't up in that case. I think it might have been, but if she didn't use it to defend herself, you know, Olaf was on her, and, you know, there's not much that she could have done, especially with Ragnarok up, to slow him down or stop him or kite him. So Red Team actually just really playing it really well there. You know, somehow they got tipped off. They know, hey, Annie's alone, and you know that is the one mistake that Unbreakable has made all game, and it might be a fatal one. We'll have to see as Red Team tries to push this down. They have a couple seconds to get back up, but Red Team should be able to push down this turret. I don't believe Jax is going to be able to protect
right now
this.
the Red Team has enough minions, has enough damage. They can actually bulldoze the turret. They're in the driver's seat. This game is heavily in favor of the Red Team right now, and I don't think there's much the blue team can do to come back from this. You know, we never say it's over completely until it's over, until the Nexus explodes, but definitely, you know, I think the advantage has spiraled kind of out of control. They have quite a bit of minions. They have Baron buff now, which means they can let mid lane push with those super minions. They can go push another lane. They can go take another free dragon. They can go back and spend all that gold that they just acquired. Now, between Baron and 3 turrets, plus the team fight gold, like they're going to be able to, you know, either finish out some builds. Maybe, you know, someone like Alistar could say, hey, you know, I've got Aegis, but now I can, you know, I can become even a little more tanky. I can even be more assistance in these team fights. We've got Warmogs now on Olaf, which means he's, I mean, he may have already had Warmogs, but he's going to be quite unkillable with that Force of Nature. We've got another Force of Nature on
Olaf, which he's been rocking since like the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, Nocturne.
But yeah, Nocturne.
We got Force of Nature on Nocturne.
Yeah. But if you look at Ezreal, he got a QSS like we were talking about earlier. Actually, you know, he has cleanse, he has QSS, so all that AOE sustain. He actually has 2 get out of jail free cards, and then he actually just finished his last Whisper, so he's going to hit even harder now, along with that. So Ezreal's finally caught up. He's actually been able to get some kills finally, and a few more assists, which has actually helped him, you know, finish up these items a lot, because before he was just relying on CS. Like a lot of these ADs have actually been pretty divorced from a lot of the action to be able to actually pick up kills. And Ashe, unfortunately, is still kind of in that boat. You know, she's now finally on the back foot, you know, lagging behind Ezreal at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Now that we take a little bit, now that we can see that the builds have been mostly completed, and I don't think we're going to see much more in terms of item builds going much further than where we are in this game. You can see that the red team is stacking magic resist fairly heavily. You've got to make sure we don't have quite a big fight going down here, but we're probably going to see like a last-ditch engage go down here in a second.
Looks like blue team backing off completely. Probably wants to still fight under a turret. Having 2 inhibs down and having Baron buff up for the red team is going to be pretty rough for them. We're creeping up on possibly a 50-minute game here, although red team should have, you know, the ball's in their court. It's their game to lose at this point. And like you were saying earlier, that actually is pretty smart, you know, that they recognize, hey, Olaf's on the right track here. He has a bunch of magic resist. We need a bunch of magic resist. We recognize the enemy team's comps. You know, there's the shred that they have going, especially with the Mumu. We need to really stack MR, and if we can take Annie out of the equation, which happens a lot. But here we have the engagement. The Ash Arrow is finally in. Ragnarok out of it. Unfortunately, that Mumu not catching a lot of people, and now the dive is on Annie. Unbreakable trying to back out as he's throwing down timbers. They have the turret in range. Ash constantly throwing out damage, but she will be picked off by Olaf, who is now diving in and picking up kills. Looks like Ezreal, Pulsefire Ezreal, picking up a triple kill through all that. Oh, Quadra, there we go.
So I think if I'm Annie, I'm going to go donate a pentakill to my team. I think it's to my enemy team. Actually, you know what? Screw that. You know, keep your head high. These guys are going to, you know, they're going to give up game 1.
Yeah.
And, you know, very quickly what they want to do. They're obviously not going to have a lot of time to go back and say, hey, you know, rewatch this game and get prepared for the next game. They're going to have to jump right into this next game. But a couple takeaways from this. Careful on their positioning from that mid to late game, making sure no one's caught out of position. I think Ash and both Annie kind of had some, you know, fatal mistakes. And then Also, so maybe some additional wards or just playing a little more cautious. The other thing is understand that the red team has been fairly reliable, or in some cases predictable, with their aggression.
Yeah.
And so we saw them start to punish it in this game, and we saw a really strong, basically an even match. We saw both teams use their comps to their advantage.
Yes.
And, both with their strengths and their weaknesses. So what I would say is pay attention to that. Going forward into the next game, maybe think about your bans. Maybe think, maybe you want to run the similar comp because it worked out really well. I don't think they lost based on this comp. So,
no, not at all.
And now they're going to be most likely second pick, so they have an opportunity to counter pick. Yes. I would just say, you played this game well. Don't be overly, demoralized from it, and be ready to play the second match.
Yeah, I would completely agree with pretty much everything you say. And the simple thing I would just go over to them is like, you know what your opponent's going to do. Just capitalize earlier. If you capitalize earlier, I think that game snowballs in a completely different direction, and you have a really good shot at winning the game.
And if you're the red team here, keep doing what you're doing. Maybe, it's hard to say, oh, just mix it up because we just won and it works. So why change something that works? Why change a good thing? Now that you know what you're doing, you can actually mix it up a little bit. You keep those early aggressive wards, but instead of maybe invading blue buff at that 12-minute mark, go take dragon because you've scared them you've scared them with your aggression, with your counter jungling. You can you can say, oh, well, now they're going to overcommit to defending our aggression, and now we can go take another objective, or maybe maybe make a lane gank and be more have a stronger presence in lane somewhere else with with your jungler. So keep great games, great matchup here. I think both these teams we could see a best of an actual best of 3. Both teams the blue team not completely out. We're going to see if that game is getting recreated. I'm going to go ahead and check in with the teams, make sure, and then we're going to jump back in, and I think we're going to have game 2 here shortly. Yeah, so congratulations to Festive 5. They will win the first game. This is a best of 3, so we're going to come back, switch sides, and bring you some more of round 1 action here at LANcouver 2012.